How many more Palestinians and how many more Americans killed, violated will it take before this administration actually does announce a policy change?
The Israeli government's mass atrocities continue. This time they are admitting to likely killing a U.S. citizen, but by accident, because they were really aiming at someone else who was peaceful. But it's okay because they were Palestinian. So I'm going to get to the details of this story and show you some parallels here, because it is, you would hope an event like this would spark a change in U.S. policy, considering the U.S. holds all the cards. They have the ability to cut off weapons, cut off money to Israel. They don't have to wait for a ceasefire deal that Netanyahu doesn't want. They can use their leverage to end what is happening, and they are not doing that. So you would hope an event like this, where it's an American citizen being killed, which means a lot more to the U.S. government, that this would spark some changes. So far, nothing. But we'll get there. So the citizen that was killed is, her name is Aysenur Ezgi. This is the headline from Axios here. Highly likely Israeli soldiers killed U.S. citizen West Bank, says the Israeli Defense Force. Before I get to more details here, I just want to show you the parallels that this reminded me of. Rachel Corrie, who was killed in 2003 by an Israeli bulldozer. So this is somebody who was actually part of the same human rights group that Aysenur Ezgi was a part of. But again, this is from decades ago. But this was during a time where, this is early 2000s. I wasn't following any of this at the time because I was too young. But this was a major event when it happened. And now it just seems like every other day there's what would have been a major event in any other time happening, and just isn't getting the same coverage, partly because there's just so much of it. It's hard to give it the same weight. Also, partly because there's no attempt to make any changes on the side of the U.S. government. But Rachel Corrie, one example. Another example, this one's more recent, Shireen Abu Akleh, the Palestinian-American journalist who was killed by Israeli fire. Israel claimed at first that they didn't do it, and then they had to admit, when all the evidence showed they did, that yes, they did it, and they didn't charge the soldiers. Nothing came out of this. Not only that, but Israeli police attacked her funeral. That's a story that I covered at the time. If you look it up on my channel, you'll find it 2 years ago. Just the ongoing mass atrocities, and it isn't even just, it's weird to say this, it isn't even just the mass atrocities. It's how blatant they are with it. Attacking somebody's funeral. Like, you can't, there is no other levels of disgusting. So back to this story. This American activist who was killed in the West Bank. Important to note, Israel always uses the excuse of, oh, we got to get Hamas. Hamas does not control the West Bank. Can't use that excuse. But it's okay, because this protest, according to the IDF, which is known for lying, it was a violent riot in which dozens of Palestinian suspects, look how they phrase that, burned tires and hurled rocks. Burned tires and hurled rocks. So, of course, we had to shoot at them. But they weren't aiming for the U.S. citizen. No, that it was an accident, because we were aiming for the key instigator of the riot, who was also unarmed and not dangerous. But again, because they were Palestinians, so it's okay to kill them. So I'm going to get to Blinken's response. It's the same bullshit every time. No one should be shot and killed for attending a protest. Yeah, we all agree. You have the power to do something about it, and you continue to choose not to. There's also, at the end of this video, I'll get to another mass atrocity that was committed last night, because this is, every day there's a new mass atrocity. But here is a response from the State Department. Let me just play it. Look, it is just wild. Imagine this was Russia that did this. Russia is an enemy of the U.S. Imagine the response compared to what this response is when Israel does this.
It is incredibly tragic, but the circumstances around how that happens is important. The facts matter, and I am just not going to get ahead of the process as it relates to this.
Aysenur's family called for an independent investigation. Would you support this call?
So, look, what you just heard me say to Simon, we expect Israel to make their findings public. We expect those findings to be shared, transparently and as thoroughly and as soon as possible. Beyond that, I'm just not going to get ahead of what those findings determine, and should those require any additional steps needing to be taken.
Eyewitness reports claim that Russia killed an American citizen. So we're going to let Russia do the investigation. No, we don't want an independent investigation. We believe that Russia will be able to tell us exactly what happened, and we trust them. Can you imagine? It doesn't matter if it's Russia, Israel, ally, enemy, whoever. Killing a civilian is killing a civilian. This attempt to put forward this idea that we can even trust what Israel says when they've been caught in lie after lie after lie. I'll get to some examples in a minute here, but I already mentioned one earlier with Shireen Abu Akleh. Just ongoing lies. The idea that you can even trust them is insane. Even though here they have admitted to doing this. And do you know why they can now do that? They're now confident enough to just say, yeah, we did whatever. Because there have been no repercussions for any of their atrocities. Look at the level of genocide that the Israeli government has committed over the past year alone, not even to mention what's gone on before that. Just the past year alone. Look at what they have gotten away with. Why wouldn't they just come out and admit, yeah, we did it. All right, who cares? Let's move on, because clearly the US government doesn't care. So why would they even bother to make up a lie? Rashida Tlaib replied to this on Twitter, saying, "Dear Americans, if you are killed by the Israeli government, our country won't care. No one will be held accountable. It doesn't matter who you are. Israel can kill Americans and get away with it." Shireen Abu Akleh proved that. This example as well will prove that. You can get away with it. Israel will get away with it. Omar Badar tweeted this out, I think months ago. April 10th. But this applies today, as it does every day. Timeline on repeat. Israel commits massacre. Israel denies massacre. Media says we don't know who committed massacre. Investigation reveals Israel committed massacre. News cycle moves on. Average person doesn't know Israel is systematically committing massacres. Here's another, I want to be clear as well. This video was taken, the one I just showed you, and this one was taken before Israel came out to admit that they did it. It doesn't change the fact that the response was insane. But we now know that Israel has admitted to doing it, or at least likely doing it, is what they're saying. But I want to play this. This is from Prem Tucker, who does a really good job here at driving home just how insane all of this is.
To Saeed's question, the U.S. says it demands respect for press colleagues. Then Israeli forces kill our colleague Shireen Abu Akleh and scores of Palestinian journalists. The U.S. says it supports aid workers. Then Israeli forces kill American Jacob Flickinger and plenty of other aid workers, including Palestinians. The U.S. says it condemns illegal settlement activity. And then Israeli forces kill Aysenur Ezgi, Rachel Corrie, and scores of Palestinians subject to settler violence. Another New Jersey teacher last month was shot by Israeli forces as he did the same thing Aysenur was doing. How many more Palestinians and how many more Americans killed, violated will it take before this administration actually does announce a policy change?
So, Prem, I will say this, that one of the reasons we are so squarely focused on working to get a ceasefire deal is because of the calm and the stability and the potential it has for that, not just in the immediate Gaza Strip and the surrounding areas, but the region broadly.
All right, so I cut off that answer there because it's just more bullshit. I'll link to it below in case you want to hear the rest of the bullshit. But it's the same crap we keep hearing. This idea that, just if only we could get to a ceasefire deal, not like we hold all the cards and have the ability to cut off weapons to Israel and have the ability to cut off funding and have obvious pressure points that we are not using on the Israeli government to stop this mass atrocities. No, we don't have. What can we do? We need a ceasefire deal, which Netanyahu doesn't want. This has been widely reported within Israel as well. People that are close to him are reporting this. He does not want a ceasefire deal because that means the end of his power. His government is being held together by right-wing freaks. So he is appeasing them by continuing these mass atrocities. That is what is holding him in power. A ceasefire deal ends that for him. It's so frustrating knowing how full of shit both the Israeli government and the US government is on this issue, that it's been widely reported. Great journalists like Prem Tucker out there, hammering the State Department about this, but you're not going to get an honest answer out of these people because they have no interest in being honest. They have no interest in being real with what is actually going on. This is, I'll link to this below. Article from 4 months ago, but it's from Mehdi Hassan. Which is worse, Israel's lies about Gaza or its Western backers who repeat those lies? So there have been too many lies to count. Every day there's a new lie. So this is out of date. It's from back in May, but at the time, here are some lies that we already were aware of. As he writes here, there are almost too many lies, distortions, and falsehoods to keep track of. 40 babies beheaded by Hamas never happened. Babies baked in ovens or hung on clotheslines, false. A Bond villain-style layer hidden under Al-Shifa Hospital, nope. Palestinians in Gaza caught on camera faking their injuries, a complete fabrication. The list of Hamas hostage takers found on a wall in the Al-Rantisi Children's Hospital, sorry, no. It was just the days of the week on a calendar in Arabic, which, by the way, is in a song by Belly, one of the few artists that have actually discussed what's going on here in his music. But more. So how about the atrocities that Israeli forces have been credibly accused of, that they then loudly denied and then later were found to be responsible for? The Flower Massacre in February, the bombing of the refugee convoy last October, the White Phosphorus attack in southern Lebanon, also in October. It goes on and on and on. And that doesn't even include the many lies before October 7th. So let me play for you a bit of what Antony Blinken is saying here, the Secretary of State, of course, where, again, you could argue a change in tone here. Maybe he's really this time he's going to do something. He's at his wit's end. Time will tell. But here is what he's saying about this.
Could you say, they said that she was killed most likely by Israeli fire, but unintentionally. Are you confident with that assessment? Does the United States want to see anything further? Are you confident with the assessment that this was unintentional? And what more do you want Israel to do? Could there be repercussions?
With regard to the tragic killing of Aysenur, I think what we saw of this investigation is it seems to show what eyewitnesses have said and made clear, that her killing was both unprovoked and unjustified. No one should be shot and killed for attending a protest. No one should have to put their life at risk just for freely expressing their views. In our judgment, Israeli security forces need to make some fundamental changes in the way that they operate in the West Bank, including changes to their rules of engagement. We've long seen reports of the security forces looking the other way when extremist settlers use violence against Palestinians. We've seen reports of excessive force by Israeli security forces against Palestinians. And now we have the second American citizen killed at the hands of Israeli security forces. It's not acceptable. It has to change. And we'll be making that clear to the senior-most members of the Israeli government. Now, we're looking carefully at the results of this investigation, but even on an initial read, and even accepting it at face value, it's clear that there are serious issues that need to be dealt with, and we will insist that they be dealt with.
I'm sorry for being skeptical, but I don't think anything is going to change because of this. This is the same kind of language that's been used before by Antony Blinken, and nothing's changed. We are very concerned. They need to stop the civilian killing. We've been very clear about that. We've made it clear to Netanyahu that this is not acceptable. They've already said all this before, and nothing changed. Again, it doesn't matter what the State Department says to the Israeli government. It matters what they do. Do they put in an arms embargo, cut off weapons, cut off money? If that is implemented, that could potentially change something. It's too late. A lot of lives have already been lost, but it could potentially stop the future mass atrocities, at least some of them. But that isn't even a discussion. The only discussion they go to is we're going to be very clear with them that they need to stop doing this. That doesn't do anything. It hasn't done anything. It has just been very depressing to witness all of this. It hasn't slowed down. It's only continued since October 7th. These mass atrocities. Here's another one. Israeli strike kills 40 displaced Palestinians in Gaza in what Israel called a safe zone, as Democracy Now! Reports here. So at least 40 Palestinians were killed and scores more injured in an Israeli strike that ripped through a tent encampment housing displaced Palestinians near Khan Yunis. Israel had designated the area a so-called safe zone. Witnesses say at least 4 missiles fell onto the crowded camp as people slept, engulfing tents in flames and scattering body parts. There's nothing left to say here. People are rightfully angry about this. Anyone that pays attention to what goes on around the world, and like oftentimes the retort that some will attempt is, "Oh, why don't you care about what's happening over here, over here?" This is something that the U.S. government has direct involvement in. There's a lot of discussion and pressure on them right now and anger about this because people feel like they're a part of this. Their government is doing this. And that applies as well to Canada, to the UK, to other allies of Israel. That is why there is more outrage over this mass atrocity than, one happening where these countries aren't as involved or aren't involved in. It's a different situation here. And, it feels weird to be comparing. Let's compare this mass atrocity with this mass atrocity. They're all terrible. But here's a situation where there is direct control. The U.S. has the power to stop this, and they are simply, up to this point, choosing not to.